And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I'm your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another off-season supporter series. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to get ourselves back to that lovely season that is footy in March. So I thought, let's have some fun and talk with some international and American fans. And joining me today, a very good friend of the podcast, a fellow footy podcaster here in the States himself, and one of my favorite supporters of his particular club that I know. So I got to bring him in, the Yank on the footy, Mr. Craig Wessels. Craig, great to see you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you. It's great to get back to even something that resembles a little bit of normalcy. So it's awesome to be chatting with you there, sir. How are you?
Well, it is not too bad. It is great to see you. I know some things have been kind of crazy in your life, so I
Oh,
thought let's have some fun. Let's pull
let's
you out a little bit out of that hole that is life a little bit, and let's talk
yes,
some
yes.
footy. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy. So before we hop onto the podcast, I always like being able for my audience to find out just the littlest bit about the person behind the episode. So I thought just a little bit about yourself outside of the game of football.
Well, I am a school teacher. I live in Sandusky, Ohio. I've been teaching for 31 years. I've got been married now for I think it'll be 30 years this year. I think. I think it's 30 years this year. I know the date. I don't know I don't know the years. The
They start
years
to
I'm
drift
old.
away from you after a
Yeah,
while.
it's getting close to 30. It might be 29 this year, but yeah, we've got my son's 27. He's a lieutenant in the Navy, and my daughter is she's a school teacher and teaches on the Cherokee Indian Reservation in North Carolina. So I don't get to see either one of them very often. And I watch a lot of footy by myself because I've not been able to get anybody in my household to ever sit down and watch footy. And I've also become rather enamored with cricket over the last
Mhm.
couple of years. And I started watching cricket backwards. Okay, I started with T20 and it started to dabble a little bit with Test cricket, and it's just two completely different animals. Two
Mhm.
completely different animals.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah,
100%. Nope.
yeah, I
I
do.
go ahead.
I was gonna say I do have the podcast, The Yank on the Footy, as you mentioned. That's been going on for since 2017. No,
Mm,
2019.
19. Yep.
2019. But I'm closing in on like 450 episodes overall. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, just get back on the wagon. I'm working on my 18 preview episodes right now. I think I've got six of them recorded. I've got four coming up in the next 3 days,
Mhm.
and a few more to get scheduled yet. So.
Well, and you always find some great guests. I know it's one of those that I look forward to is listening to some of the guests in their previews. Always fantastic. So let's jump right into it, sir. As you said, we are kindred spirits, both podcasters, both Americans that love our
Yes.
footy. So I gotta ask,
Both Midwesterners.
both Midwesterners too. So there's that hardworking little bit of blue collar to us. We absolutely love it. So I gotta ask, what is your finding footy story?
Well, I have spent the last 14 years working as a public address announcer at the school where I teach. I've announced football from junior high up through varsity, as well as both our boys and girls soccer teams. And I back in 2016, and I vaguely remember seeing footy on ESPN when I was a little, when I not a little kid, but when I was younger, did not pay much attention to it then. But in 2016, I would come home from announcing games, and everybody, wife was in bed, and kids were off at college, and I would flip the TV on, and FS1 or FS2 would be there, and there'd be a game on, and I started gravitating towards it. I'd seen enough of our football for that day, and um, just really started to get interested in it, and kind of dove headfirst. I used to be a massive baseball fan. I mean, baseball was far and away my favorite sport, and I've not watched a game of baseball in 6 years. Not
Mhm.
watched a moment of baseball in 6 years. And I think that I think Major League Baseball is destroying itself with the lack of a salary cap,
Mhm.
the pitch count, the pitch clock, and that sort of thing. I also think uh, if you're a baseball fan, you banning the shift, I think, is ridiculous because you are rewarding bad hitters.
Mhm.
I know let's have more offense, that sort of thing. How about you want to have more offense? Don't have guys strike out 190 times a season. Have them put the bat on the ball, get runners moving.
Mhm.
Okay. You know what? Chicks may dig the long ball, but people who watch baseball like to see action in the game and
Hmm.
not going, son of a bitch, that guy struck out 3 times tonight. So,
Hmm.
the salary cap thing is probably the biggest thing now. Where you've got, the Mets, the Dodgers, the Yankees with 300 million plus payrolls, and the Royals, the Guardians. I don't care about the name change. That doesn't bother me. But, the other clubs, down there, 80, $90 million. It's not a level playing field. It's one of the things I love about footy is the salary cap. It's one of the things that I appreciate about the NFL is that, the Green Bay Packers have as much of a shot at putting together a Super Bowl winning team as the Los Angeles Rams or
Hmm.
the New York Giants or the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, and that's a town that's what, half the size of Geelong,
Hmm.
and they've got as much of a chance of putting together a Super Bowl winning team as any of those other clubs.
Yep. No, 100%
So
with you
yeah,
on that
I
one.
started following it and I got into it and I became enamored and I got my Watch AFL thing for the first time in 2017. I didn't realize until 2018 that you could actually get it through your
Hmm.
international membership, and that's where I got it. I get it now, of course, and yeah, it's a little cheaper. You get the opportunity to pick up a little bit of swag from your club as well. So yeah,
Hmm.
so that's kind of my story, and I watch footy. I watch cricket. I'm a long-suffering Cleveland Browns fan. Okay, I'll watch the Buckeyes from time. I mean, I'm not somebody who has to sit down and watch the Buckeyes week in and week out. And I
Hmm.
like watching the Naval Academy play, but I don't watch NFL from start to finish on Sundays. I don't. If the Browns are playing a Monday night, I'll watch that. Or one of the odd games, I'll watch it. But other than that, I really don't care. I
Hmm.
don't pay a lot of attention to it. I like to watch my team, but as far as footy, I try to watch darn near every game every single week.
Yep.
So,
One of the things I love, it's one of those that I will give this Yank on a Footy podcast is always one that I always have to have during the footy season because not only does he have some great interviews, but I love that he brings on Mick Ozzie, who I've had on the podcast as well, and I love his insights and thought processes on that. So let's jump right into it. As you said, you've fallen in love with this sport again. You kind of have to
yes.
be kind of nuts to fall in love
Yeah.
with a sport that's thousands of kilometers away. So I asked this, what's your
Hmm.
favorite part about the sport of football?
You know, I think I like the speed of it. I just seeing the fact that these guys cover the ground that they cover, with the facility being as large as it is, it's just I think I truly believe I think they're the greatest athletes on the planet.
Hmm.
I really do, hands down. Just from a conditioning standpoint, that you have to be. You have to be. Now, maybe if you're a key forward, you can get away with maybe not being quite as good an athlete because you get to do a little bit of standing around. But I but you're a midfielder. You're a you're a defender that's working their way up the field. You're going to be running a ton, and not only that, you're getting knocked ass over apple cart, 20 times a game as well, if not more.
Hmm.
So to me, I just think it's great to to watch these tremendous athletes, and it's to me it's a lot more action packed, I think, than watching the NFL. And then again, as I said, I'm a huge baseball fan, and baseball was slow in terms of the action, but I love the storytelling that the announcers would do.
Hmm.
I love listening to the Cleveland announcers. Tom Hamilton, who just got named to, I think, the Ford Frick. He's going to the Hall of Fame as an announcer this year. Phenomenal. If you watch baseball at all, or you listen to it on the radio, he's one of the best that's ever done it. But I love listening to the stories, and to me it's kind of it's got a bit of a geography tinge to it, and I've got a geography background. I've taught geography for many years as well, so I like that aspect of it as well. It's just it's unique, it's different, and I guess deep down, I guess the more I think about it, it just kind of makes me feel a little cool knowing that I'm watching something that other people aren't watching, even though I know I'm not really cool. But I just it's one of the things that you do with your show. One of the things that I do with my show. I think deep down, if we were to write down our top three goals with our podcasts, one of those three things is encouraging other Americans to check out this great game.
Hmm.
I almost promise you that would be on your list.
Hmm.
The guys out in California, that's on their list as well. But it's just and with the pod, yeah, and as far as the game, having done the podcast, the thing I love about doing that is just hearing people's stories and learning about the game from all different facets and, why they love their club, what experience they have had that, because it's something, that I'll never get to have that from their age going forward. Because, my falling in love with the game didn't happen until my early to mid 50s. Okay. So I don't, so and yours is you're a little younger than I am, so you don't, but so you don't have in your DNA, I don't think that that you have, that club that you absolutely loathe, because we grew up
Hmm.
appreciating the game as a whole, and so I mean, we just love footy. Of course, you want to see the Swans win week out and week in and week out. I want to week out. I want to see the Cats win week in and week out. But then other than that, we want to watch 8 great games.
Hmm.
We don't necessarily have a vested interest in one club or the other winning any particular game. We just want to see a great contest.
Yep.
So, yeah.
100% with you on that one. I 100% with you. I agree. I've heard you say it several times in your podcast. You go, as long as you see a Cats win and eight other great games of football, you have a good weekend. And I
Yeah.
completely agree with you on that one. So my next question that I have, I know the answer. I'm gonna ask it, but I'm gonna change it just the tiniest bit. I know that unfortunately Father Time has not exactly been nice to you. I'm going to put you in a time machine, sir. If you would have known about this sport in your younger days, would you have played?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've spent most of my life rather shaped like the ball. Uh, to be honest with you, I um I might have tried to give it a shot. I mean, I was a halfway decent baseball player. I was a I played baseball in high school. I was on the football team. I
Mhm.
was so far down on the depth chart that I needed scuba gear. That's how bad I was in football.
Mhm.
Okay. I coached football for 4 years, when I was teaching, and we went and played this, the school that I went to school at, and we were carrying the equipment over to the visitor's sideline, and I'm walking with one of the other coaches, and I looked at him, I said, I played here for 4 years. This is the most time I ever spent on this field. Just walking to the other sideline.
That is funny.
But
That is great.
I would, it wasn't around them, but I think if it was in existence, let's say that, and again, I'm 2 hours away from Columbus. I'm an hour west of Cleveland, that has a team.
Mhm.
If maybe I would have, if had I known about it, sure, I guess maybe I would have tried it out. Um, but I doubt I would have been any good at it, because the aerobic standpoint of it would, that would not be kind to me. Okay. I'm really good in short bursts of like
Mhm.
6 steps or so. but, but, but,
The
but if,
plunger
if we start
pocket
getting
full forward would have been great
now,
for you, sir.
now I did go out, I average walking about 20 miles a week now,
Mhm.
and in the summertime, I average walking about 80 miles a week. So, in my summer job. So, I, I do move around a lot. I'm not sedentary. I mean, I've lost 160 pounds over the last four
Mhm.
years. I put about 15 of it back on in the last couple of months with everything that's been going on, because I've been
Mhm.
stressed about things and have just, not been making great food choices, but still a heck of a lot later than I was,
Mhm.
this time in like 2021. And I feel significantly better. Then I actually look like the ball. I don't quite look like it anymore, but I mean, I don't have a share. I have a Burley up on the shelf up there.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, I did take it out and actually try to kick it once. It went somewhere, not terribly far. I mean, if there was somebody there that I was trying to hit them on the run,
Not so
that
much.
wasn't gonna happen. No, that wasn't gonna happen. But I mean, I probably would have tried. But I mean, I might have gone out there to, to have a kick or something like that. But I would not have been competitive at it at all. No.
There's nothing wrong with that. The biggest thing is you appreciate the sport and you respect it. That's
Oh, absolutely.
perfectly fine on that one. So
Yeah, I tip my cap to people that are able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is not easy, and the kicking skill it is so foreign and unique. Trust me, when I teach guys that are in good shape, sometimes kicking it straight sometimes is an accomplishment for many of
Yeah.
those. So you've thrown it out there already once, and anybody that's watched this, anybody that's watching the YouTube channel clearly knows who this is. But I'm gonna ask for those that are listening to the podcast version, who is your club and why?
I am a Geelong Cats supporter. I chose to be a cat supporter. It took me about a year before I decided on which club to settle on. I when I decided to, that I wanted to, start following this game closely, I narrowed down my list of three clubs that I was going to follow,
Mhm.
and those clubs were Geelong, Brisbane, and Collingwood. And I chopped Collingwood pretty quickly from the list, and I could kind of one of the reasons I had them on my list was because their team colors, black and white, are the same colors of the school district where I teach.
Mhm.
I thought, okay, that would be very complimentary to it, but and I thought, I really wanted to support a club that was not in like the big footy hubs.
Mhm.
And I thought Brisbane and Geelong fit the bill there. So I started watching both of them very closely, and I had I had one player in particular that I was watching in a game in 20, it was a 2017 game that, and this is a guy who unfortunately was just snake bit injury wise in his career that, it never took off. And I think had he stayed healthy, I think he would probably still be in their midfield to this day.
Mhm.
Had he been able to stay healthy, because when he was healthy, he was really, really good. And I was watching a game against Carlton. I cannot remember who it was, but I mean, the player I'm talking about is Nakia Cockatoo.
Mhm.
And again, some of you may be going, who? Yeah, exactly. I think he ended up only playing about 30, maybe 40 games in his entire career between the Cats and Brisbane. He ended up going to Brisbane. He's now playing up in the NTFL. He's playing up in, I think no, he's in Queen. He was in Queensland last year. He played on a team in Queensland, and his team actually won the premiership this past year in the QAFL. But he had a tackle where he just hit somebody right on the boundary, and just my watching NFL gridiron football kind of kicked out. He decleated this guy and darn near put him through the signage. I mean, that's how hard he hit him. And I
Mhm.
was like, whoa. I mean, that had me sit up and take notice, and I started paying more attention to him. And there was a period of a handful of games, and the 2017 season is not on the Watch AFL app anymore, so I can't go back and watch that game there anymore. They've actually cut it back to 2022 now. So they've actually cut like 3 years off that they used to have on there. And I watched him a few more games, and it just, and it wasn't Selwood, it wasn't Ablett, it wasn't Tom Hawkins or Cam Guthrie. It was Nakai Kaku that pushed me into that camp. Plus, on my dad's side of the family, between like 6 or 7 relatives, there's also like 175 years of working at Ford. So that there was a little bit to do with it there as well. So that's kind of what pushed me in that direction, and I'm glad I made the decision. And you know, I've I've encountered hundreds of cat supporters online who've been extraordinarily generous and kind to me, and and I'll be honest, I've not had any supporter of any club that has really sledged on me that hard. I mean, because we're kind of an anomaly. We're kind of like sporting circus freaks. You and I,
Mhm.
that. Oh, Americans that like these Americans like footy, huh? Oh, sure you do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you start rattling off stuff, and you're going, damn, okay, maybe they do like the game. They do know a little bit about it. So that's kind of cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I ended up with the cats, and I'm very glad. And I have I've got one of those little buttons hanging up behind me over here, which is a Nakai
Mhm.
Cockatoo button that's hanging there. I've I've sent him notes online. I would love to get him on the podcast. I've not been able to do it yet. I had Dom Fay, who does a Brisbane related podcast on for my Brisbane preview this year, and I talked to him off air, and he knows him, and I said, hey, by all means, feel free if you can get in touch with him and let him know. I would love to have him on, just because he
Hmm.
was, but because he's the reason I became a cat supporter, and then he ended up with Brisbane anyway. So I had to, I would not have discovered him there because he only played like 4 games with the Lions before they cut him loose, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, what I think is interesting is going back on your list. It's like you have the last three premiers all in a row. So
Well, yeah,
you
I mean, it
couldn't have
was,
planned that any better if you tried.
well, and part of me, yeah, some people are going to get mad at me right now, but had I followed, my life plan, I guess I would have ended up a Saint supporter.
Oh
Realizing,
boy.
the Browns have, the Cleveland Indians or Guardians, they've not won the World Series since 1948 when my mom was 6 and she's 82 now.
Hmm.
Um, the Browns won the last NFL championship in 1964. I was a year old. I was in diapers then, and I've resigned myself to the fact that I'm probably going to be back in diapers before they win a Super Bowl. So
The
yeah, I'm kind of
bookends of life.
glad I did pick the Cats because they have had some success. I mean,
Hmm.
I actually did a spreadsheet and at that time, the Cats, the Pies, they were up towards the top. This was really when Richmond was just starting to percolate, and I think their first premiership that they'd won was in 2017.
Hmm.
But God, those are Pittsburgh Steeler colors. I could not do that. I
Hmm.
could, with a clear conscience, I couldn't do that. So
Nope, I completely
yeah,
get it. Sometimes the color scheme is always the fun one on
yeah,
that one. So
yep.
and anybody that's watching the YouTube video sees that there is plenty of memorabilia behind you. You've got premiership flags, you've got hats and all that. So I gotta ask, what was the first Cats item that you were ever given or bought?
It was. It was actually. I've got to get it out here. It was actually this hat was my
Mhm.
first Cats item, and actually I think it was this shirt too. I think I got this shirt and this hat at the same time, and the shirt is held up a little better than the hat. I mean, I've undergrown the shirt. I mean, this shirt's like 3 sizes too big on me right now. So,
Mhm.
but this hat is ratty. It's been through the washing machine a few times, and it just will not come clean anymore. But yeah, I had somebody send me the 2010. Is it 2010 premieres?
Mhm.
Is it 2010 or 2011? 2011
2011, odd
premieres. Yeah,
years. It was odd
yeah.
years.
It was the 11. I got the 2011 premiership cap that somebody sent me a couple of years ago as well. That and probably my prized possession is I don't know if you can see it up here. Is I've got one of Catman's headbands.
I remember
Yeah.
that podcast. That was a
So
good
yeah,
podcast.
he for those of you that follow the Cats at all, you guys know Troy West. Catman. His dad played for the Cats for many years. Um, but 2 years ago, he sent me a note online, and he said, "Mate, can you the company where I buy my hair to make my wigs for my costume in the U.S. will not ship to Australia anymore." He said, "Can I just buy the stuff and have it and have them ship it to your house and you drop it in the post to me?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." So I he got this box of hair sent to me, and I,
Love
I,
it.
I was waiting. I was waiting for Jodie Foster to come for a visit, and ask me to put the lotion back in the basket. So I opened it up. I got on a quick Zoom call with him. And I said, "No, this what you ordered? This is what you wanted?" Yep. So I repackaged it, put it into a new box, shipped it off to him, and he sent me some stuff back as well. And that's when the headband came and quite a few other things as well. So yeah, Troy's been awesome. But like I said, the cat supporters have just been so kind and really, like I said, really, and I think you probably will have found this as well that when when you talk to people who don't, that they just learn that you are a footy fan,
Mhm.
and you may not be able to see it, but there's if nothing else, there's kind of like a little bit of a metaphorical eye roll, like, oh yeah, whatever, okay, fine. And then when they realize that you know your stuff, and then it's I think there's also that excitement of maybe the fact that that there are people outside of Australia that have an interest in their game,
Mhm.
which we that's as like I said, that's one of our goals is to get this game in front of as many eyes and ears as we possibly can because I think it's the greatest game on the planet.
Mhm.
And I think you probably think that as well. And it's just and a lot of it's about how do we get more people interested in it here,
Mhm.
and this is a sports crazy country. Yeah, and I've said this. We've got 330 roughly million people in this country. If we could get 1% of Americans interested in Australian football, that's the
Mhm.
population of Australia.
Mhm.
That's you're doubling viewership, you're doubling interest, you're getting international memberships, you're probably increasing tourism, getting people to travel to Australia to visit, to vacation, to bring dollars, into the economy there. It's a win-win. I just had mate named Peter Haywood sent me a link tonight. A guy from Oklahoma who's a St. Kilda fan who's
Mhm.
been,
I saw that too. Yep.
that he makes 4 trips a year. He's 77, and it's like I see all these people that are going on these trips, and I'm like, I'm happy for them, but at the same time, I'm a little bummed out that I've had to push my trip back again this year,
Mhm.
with my wife's health issues. So it's just, yeah, someday I'll get there. I
Yep.
may not be alive for it. I mean, I may just, I may put in my will, just, fly my ashes to Australia there and
Yep.
just, kind of drive around, drive up and down the M1, so that I can say that I've at least driven past all three of the local big stadiums there. I was gonna, have a, find a Richmond supporter to sprinkle my ashes at Docklands because I know how much they love going to Docklands.
Oh, that is one of my favorite running jokes that you have on the podcast for sure. Absolutely love it. So I have a few Tigers supporters who I go back and forth with, and
Yeah.
I have to bite my tongue a little bit whenever they play at the Docklands because I just want to
Yeah.
mess with them a little bit.
Well,
So
just
no,
yeah. I
but
mean, you got that. You got that. 3 kilometer wide Crockfield River and the 20 kilometers of desert. And, the last thing that Gill did before he left, his position was he installed a 200-meter wide strip of broken Lego pieces that Richmond supporters all have to walk across barefoot to get there. So
oh
it's
boy,
just
it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Absolutely love it. So. You gotta have a little bit of fun, the playful banter, but just to go off that, it's just and it's also the people that you meet. Like I think you've had the same thing. It's like you just meet people that when they do find out that you know
hmm
what you're talking about and you're just as passionate as some of the people in Australia, they're just so welcoming and kind. No matter if it's
yeah,
Cat supporters, I've had the same thing with Swan supporters. Like
yeah,
I've told many people, my Swans jersey that I have up here is from New South Wales. That was
hmm
sent to me. And
yeah,
I didn't ask them for it. They sent it to me out of the goodness of their heart because
yeah,
everybody knows that's one of my favorite Guernseys that the
hmm
Swans have put out. So it's that type of stuff that's always fantastic. So the community is amazing. So we'll come back into the podcast just a little bit. And I got to ask this, sir, is that you know me, like I said, we watch all of the games. We stay up till God knows what hours. So I got to ask this. Fandom throughout the world is different. Everybody is different. Everybody
hmm
fans different. So I got to ask
yeah.
this. Describe to me your fandom of the Geelong Cats. Just a little bit about how you would classify yourself as a Cats supporter.
I'm extraordinarily passionate. I mean, I'm in discussion boards online. I'm a moderator on one of the cats forums on Facebook. I mean,
Mhm.
so I've been welcomed into that point to where they've got somebody that's there overnight checking things. That's so popping in there once in a while. So I mean, I've been accepted in and taught the secret handshake as far as that
Mhm.
sort of thing goes. But I mean, I this is my the Browns are always going to be my favorite team, but they are just so damn dysfunctional. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm at the point now. Yes, I watch week in and week out, but it's partly like driving, it's like driving past a small fender bender, on the
Mhm.
highway, and you wonder, okay, who was the dummy that did that? Who caused that accident? Because it's kind of like what it is to watch the Cleveland Browns. I mean, but I, I'm watching, when my kids are far away, but I'm watching, when my wife is asleep, so I have to be somewhat reserved in terms of
Noise.
my cheering and that sort of thing. Um, but I close, we have a pocket door to the family room so I can close it. It's in the back of the house so she doesn't hear me at all. But I'm I can be pretty loud. I mean, I'll sit there, I'll make, it's usually breakfast time kind of thing. Cause if they're playing at, 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, I'm sitting there with a pot of coffee and,
Mhm.
some toast or whatever, or some oatmeal and watching the game. And it's just, I'll make some scrambled eggs or whatever at halftime, but it's what I look for. I will look forward to it. It's something that I get excited knowing that their game's coming on. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that's going to be really, it's fun, because I'll have, once the season starts, I may not watch every game live, but
Mhm.
I'll watch them through the course of the first couple of days of the week. So I mean, when I go into my classroom, I'll have a game on, and I'm in my classroom usually by 6 a.m. every morning, and kids don't come in until 8 o'clock. So when they, some of them start trickling in about a quarter till, and there's a game on. Some of the kids, they're like, "What is this we're watching?"
Mhm.
And I'll, we'll watch a little what is AFL thing, and we'll talk about it a little bit. And it's kind of fun to expose them to that just a teeny bit. I had a couple kids last year. One decided to be a Giant supporter. One decided to be a Swan supporter last year.
Mhm.
I don't think they watched many games after the school year ended, but they kind of committed to
Mhm.
those two clubs. But it's just fun having the kids see the game for the first time, and then when they see some of the differences in the game, and you see somebody taking a specky and that sort of thing, and
Mhm.
and their eyes open wide, like they're allowed to do that. I said, "Yeah, that's celebrated. That is something that people people love to see that. They give out awards to whoever does that the best
Mhm.
during the year. Um, you know, it's just fun seeing them do it. But yeah, I'm passionate. I'm probably more I, I'm probably more passionate as a Cat supporter than I am a Cleveland Brown supporter. I can tell you that, and certainly more than Ohio State. I mean, I didn't go to Ohio State. I'm not, I've never been to an Ohio State game before. It's just they're kind of the local big team, and it's
Mhm.
it's who you follow. And um I've just gotten yeah I'd like to see them win, but I don't always catch the games, and I may listen to them on the radio if I'm out working in the yard or whatever. But I the Cats I'm watching, but
Mhm.
it's one of the things I love about the AFL's app. So even if I'm not able to watch, there are times where I'll go out, in the summertime, I'll go out for walks at 5 o'clock in the morning as the sun's coming up, and just listen to one of the games on the AFL app. I mean, it's
Mhm.
great that you can listen to those
Yep.
games for free on there. I mean, it's awesome that you can do
Mhm.
that. And I actually, my summer job there, sometimes I'm working in the mornings, and it's before, I work at an amusement park, and it's, hours before anybody gets there. So I'm off doing stuff out on my own, and I'll pop in my AirPods out all by myself and, listen to a game while I'm working on stuff. And,
Mhm.
it's just, I'm a crazy American sports fan because, and just, to kind of, to tie onto that, I've become such a fan of cricket that last fall, as my wife was watching the Yankees and the Cleveland Guardians in I think the American League
Mhm.
Championship Series, she's in the bedroom watching that. I'm out in the family room watching Nepal and Bangladesh playing cricket. So
That is awesome.
I could care less about what was
Mhm.
going on in the baseball game. And it's I hate the Yankees, but it's yeah.
No,
So,
I absolutely love it. You and like I said, you and I are kindred spirits in so many different ways. I know maybe a tiny bit different. Like I said, most people that want listen to me know that I'm up at 2:40. If the game is on at 2:40 in the morning, I'm up.
mhm.
I'm up 10 minutes
Yeah, yeah.
before 10 minutes before first bounce. And then depending on when the game ends, I'll either go to bed or
Hmm.
well, I'll spend the next probably 45 minutes interacting
Right,
with
right.
my fellow fans
Yeah.
online over that and going back and forth. So it's one of those. I absolutely love it. So it's fantastic. So we'll move to the next one. We already know half of the answer to this, so I'm going to change just a little bit. Favorite player of the past. It's hard not to say. Nakai Cockatoo was your favorite player
Yes,
of the
yes.
past. So your favorite player currently on the Cats list.
This has been this is again one of those off the board answers that people are going to, they're going to scratch their head about a little bit because it's and I'm sort of saying this in jest, but in many ways, if you go back and you look at the photographs from when I started following this team in 2017,
Mhm,
my favorite current player is Zach Guthrie.
mhm,
Okay. You go back and you look at Zach Guthrie in 2017, it looks like he was still about a year away from puberty actually kicking in for him. And now 2025, I can safely say, as my wife likes used to tell my son, when he was trying to decide something, well, you're a grown ass man. Decide it for you, figure it out for yourself. He's officially
mhm,
a grown ass man now and has actually become a very, very good football player.
mhm.
And I love the way he hustles, and it's just, he does things the right way. And you couldn't go wrong. You say if you said Jeremy Cameron or Patty Dangerfield or Tom Stewart, but Zach Guthrie is a kid that I've loved watching him go from where Chris Scott was writing his name on his magnet in pencil to where he it's now written in indelible ink.
Mhm.
His name's on that magnet, and that magnet staying on that board as long as he's healthy and as long as he's still playing. He's earned that spot. He's grown into that spot and has certainly seized upon that. So it's just been an awful lot of fun watching him develop into, that kind of a solid defender. So
Mhm.
yeah, he's my favorite player to watch. He's the one that I really, really enjoy watching.
Yeah, he's really blossomed there. It's been a lot of fun. So let's jump right into it. Like I said, we're getting closer and closer, but let's rewind just the tiniest bit. Let's go back to last year's cat season again. Up and down. Did it end the way that some people wanted it in Cattsville? Probably not. Falling
No,
just a little
no,
bit short, a little bit short of the Brisbane Lions in the
prelim, yeah.
preliminary final. So your thoughts
Yeah,
on last
and
year's
they,
Cat season?
I if I remember correctly, and I've never really gone through life being too terribly overconfident. Um, guess that's usually what happens when you're kind of shaped like a football. It's just kind of your nature. So you try to be funny. I mean, you compensate with trying to be funny. You get to be the class clown. You get to tell your senior English teacher in high school back in the 1980s, and somehow the question comes up in class. What do you think about all the sex on TV? And I said, it's okay as long as you don't fall off. Okay. I mean, what the hell did I know about that as a senior in high school? Quite, yeah, let's be honest. When after I graduated from high school, my geometry teacher had my picture hanging on the wall for 10 years with the word square underneath it. What the heck did I know about it? But back to the Cats, you know, I tipped them eighth last year because I didn't want to be overconfident because I wasn't, yeah,
Hmm.
I thought they're getting a year older. They missed the finals the previous year. Um, I thought they would sneak into the finals, and they charged and they just kind of fell off, and they gave up a 3-goal lead in the second quarter, and lost by basically a goal and a half. But they were very solid. I mean, they had a couple, they had a patch there where they lost 4 in a row from rounds 8 through 11. Yeah, now and again, he got blown out by the Suns in one game up in Darwin. That was just an ugly game, and I just I think if they ever decide to put a team in Darwin, they've got to put a dome on that stadium. They can't do that to clubs week in and week out because whoever's playing on the home team is never going to lose a home game up there because they're going to be so acclimatized.
Hmm.
that whoever comes in there is just gonna run out of gas or petrol, as the case may be, and halfway through the second quarter, and then the home team's gonna be so well conditioned they're just gonna run away from things. But they lost three of those losses were by a total of 3 goals. So I mean, it wasn't as though the sky was falling. And this is where I think, behind the scenes, Chris Scott was, starting to do some maneuvering and getting people where he wanted them to be, and doing that selective resting of players and such. And you lost Tom Hawkins shortly after that for basically the rest of the season, and that's where you thought, okay, the wheels are going to fall off. And he really his contribution had really started to taper off last year before his foot injury actually drove him out. Because if I'm not mistaken, there were concerns about his foot being a problem even at the start of the season, and he was trying to
Hmm.
work back and play through, getting it healthy again. And he had a couple 4 goal games, but then it just really started to go away, and it gave Shannon Neal an opportunity to kind of step in. And I think, is he going to completely replace the goal totals of prime Tom Hawkins? No, he's not. Um, and my phone's ringing. There's my cat's song for my ringtone on my phone. It's also my alarm in the morning too. So I don't. My daughter's calling me, so I'm going to send her a quick message here. Just saying, can I call you later? That's because that's what she does to me all the time. I forgot to turn the ringer off. Sorry. But she's in North Carolina. She's home from school. She's got the flu. But yeah, they played pretty good football throughout much of the season. They dropped a couple games that maybe they shouldn't have. They got blown out a few times. And I think part of it was just them trying to get themselves to finals. And yeah, and I'll be honest, I was shocked when they finished top three. I didn't think they were going to get there. I'm glad they did, but I didn't think they were going to get there.
Hmm.
And and the funny thing is, I'm kind of a little more confident about them getting top four this year than I was last year, but I'm still not sure I'm going to put them there.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'll put them top four, but I won't be as shocked this year because they're not. To me, this is in some ways, this is a little bit like what happened with your club at the end of Buddy Franklin's career, where was the club actually better with Buddy on or off the ground at the exact tail end of his career? Because the club, the club, are players feeling compelled to force feed the ball to Buddy? We got to get, this guy's kicked so many goals in his career. We got to get the ball to Buddy. Got to get the ball to Buddy. Now, when they got it to him, he usually scored, but it was more difficult to get it to him because he was not as fleet of foot as he had been. He had slowed down, and objectively, were they right at that last year? Were they a better side when he was on the bench?
Hmm. All just depends on who you ask.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
All
and,
just
and I'm not,
depends on who
and
you ask.
but some people would say absolutely not, and others would say maybe.
Yeah.
As an outside observer, I thought they looked faster when he was not out there,
Hmm.
which I
And
think.
some people would say that this year kind of proved that if you look at the way the Swans came out, and again, we'll not switch this to Swans, but you look at it and you go, how much better were they this year because they didn't have that anchor up forward. So and again, as I said, Buddy's kind of he has his own gravitational pull. So the ball's going to
That's
come
a
to him
good point. Yeah,
sometimes
exactly. Yeah,
where
yeah.
I think sometimes when as soon as he came off, it added a whole degree of um uncertainty because you didn't know where
Hmm.
it was going to go because you knew if Buddy was there, it was going to go to Buddy. So you could almost
Right,
feel the
right,
defender shift towards
right.
him. This year you saw that it became a little bit harder to guard them because you didn't know which of the talls was going to be the target for it. So
Yep,
definitely for
yep.
sure on that one. So yeah, I'm interested to see how the Cats handle this year. I think Shannon Neal's one of those I look at and I go, this could be a massive year for him. This could
Hmm.
be a massive year for him if he can step up and do what he did at times last year, having a full season where he probably may be the man at full forward, maybe doing shifts with Reece Stanley through the center. So it'll be fascinating. So we've kind of discussed it a little bit. Your thoughts on next year, because I know you're a lot like me. You hate overhyping your team,
Yeah,
but sometimes it's hard to argue that when you get the new additions of Bailey Smith down in Catsland, it's hard not to
yeah.
say that the Cats are a fancy for some people.
Yeah, and I'm like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic, and again, being a Browns fan, I my other team is one that full disclosure, when I just decided to follow the BBL a few years ago, I went that small community club thing again and chose the Hurricanes, and they won the BBL earlier this
Won
week. So
the premiership.
I've got two clubs that won two premierships over the last 3 years, and I've had one in the last 50 years as a Cleveland sports fan. So I think I've done okay with that as of right now. Yeah. So
You got a pretty good strike rate in Australia right now.
yeah, I know I do. The one thing I will say is that they did get an extra home game in Geelong this year, so I think they're playing
Mhm.
10 there this year.
Yep.
Um, much to the chagrin of Essendon, who think they're above having to actually drive down the road to go play that. I say, get over yourselves. It's just seriously. I mean, I quit whining and go play the game.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
it's
Nope.
not the players.
Completely
The
agree.
players will go play wherever. It's the guys in the suits that, oh, well, you mean I have to take a car down there for 90 minutes or whatever? Oh, whatever. Take the train. Take the train. Leave a week early. Walk. I don't care. Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely love it. No, I think the cats are a team. They're in that they're in that area where if things go right and they stay healthy, could be dangerous is all get out, especially with the
Yeah.
additions that they have. But you just never know. I mean, what's Dangerfield's status? I mean, is he going
Right.
to be somebody that Coach Scott finds a way to get him to rest him a lot like what they did with Joe Silwood in 2022 when they won a
Yeah.
premiership? It'll be fascinating to see how does Bailey Smith step into this Cats lineup, which I think most Cats fans cannot wait to see Bailey Smith in the hoops. It'll be absolutely interesting to see
Especially
how
the
he
female
fits.
population in Geelong. Yes. Yes. And they're all there. And I didn't really see this, but I'm going to pretend that I saw this petition where people were asking, can we wear see-through jumpers this year? Can we wear like cutoff jumpers so his abs are out? That's can we only wear a couple of hoops, not the full complement of hoops?
Yeah, it'll definitely draw some
Yeah,
eyeballs if that were to
it's kind of
happen.
like remember when we played for the Bulldogs and they had those red and white stripes in between the blue? Can we just cut the hoops off right about there and they'll be and then they would say, well, we can't sell any more tickets because the stadium's not big enough, because we had to give
And you
all
will
these
need the
tickets to Essendon.
MCG.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it's I am and I think the player that a lot of people have forgotten about is that I think they're finally getting back, and I don't know how much he's going to contribute as a healthy Cam Guthrie.
Hmm.
You know, you know,
He's just
and
been
it
so snake bitten the last three
yeah,
years.
exactly. If he's healthy, I think that you throw his veteran presence into that, and I'll be honest, I don't if he's healthy all season, I don't see Patty Dangerfield playing more than like 16 out of the 23 regular season contests.
Hmm.
I think they rest him where
Every
they
third
need
game.
to. Yeah, something like that. Maybe they don't have him travel on the road, so when they head out, when they go to Adelaide or they go out to, Optus, to play the Eagles, in June, that maybe he doesn't make that trip out there. He stays home and, a hyperbaric chamber or whatever they do to keep him fresh, and then, I don't know if they've got walk-in Tupperware, and they put him in there and burp it and they keep him fresh for later in the season. But
Oh boy. Never thought I'd hear burping Tupperware on my podcast. I love it. I
now, for those of
absolutely
you in
love
Australia, I don't know if they have Tupperware, but you'll have to Google it. It was this very overpriced plastic storageware for your kitchen, and they always talked about it's fresh because you can burp it. And you
it.
had people
Hmm.
that would host Tupperware parties where they would have the catalogs at
Yep.
their house, and they would have food and drinks and such, and people would go buy all kinds of Tupperware. And I remember having piles of Tupperware when I was a kid at my house, and now it's the stuff that you can buy, you can find at Dollar General and such that you have instead, which is a heck of a lot cheaper.
Hmm.
So
Nope,
yeah,
100% with you. So
yep,
let's jump to it. This is going to be fun because again, as somebody who pays attention to every single game, I'm fascinated on this. Is that you know it and I know it. Since we don't watch a lot of sports, a lot of people over here in the States believe they know everything, that they know just as much as the guy pulling the levers, the general manager up here, the list manager down in Australia. So let's have a little
Hmm.
bit of fun. I'm going to install you as the Cats list manager for 1 day. You can sign one player from any of the other 17 other clubs to join the Cats for this year's flag journey. Who's the one guy you bring down to Geelong to help maybe see the hoops to get another premiership?
You know, I gotta think. I gotta think that it might be Tristan Sherry, the ruck from the Ruse. I would have said Rowan Marshall, but since he dinged up his hip recently, I don't think I want to bring him down there. Because I took Rowan Marshall with my first pick in our fantasy league last year. And I got a few strange looks taking a ruck early on, but he was actually my high scorer most weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I might take Cherry just because I just think that you know Reece Stanley has been serviceable, but he is definitely a placeholder right now. They're hoping that Toby Conway can get healthy and stay healthy. He's been a little snake bit with his foot injuries as well, and I think if he's healthy, he may see more playing time than some than Stanley does. And I think Stanley's going to be very similar to um, Dangerfield. I don't think he probably plays more than about 16 games either. I think you're going to see them slide De Koning into the ruck a little bit. I think, and from what I've been hearing, they've actually been playing him a little bit in the midfield this year
Mm-hmm.
in training. So it's bottom line, I think Sherry, having a quality ruck that that this is going to be a guy that's would be in there to be able to help out week in, week out, every week and seriously contribute and just, maybe get a goal here or there, but also have the stamina to be all over the ground. I think, if this was 2 years ago, I might have said Max gone, but I think Max is slowing down a little bit as well. But, I just think Sherry would be probably a really good choice to plug in there. And I actually, um, I may be reconsidering it, hearing about George Wardlaw's hamstring, which is going to put him out for like 10 weeks. But and I haven't released my North Melbourne episode yet, but it's coming out. It's my next one to come. I think it's either that or the Cats, but it's gonna be one of the next two that comes out. I was much more bullish on the Kangaroos than my Kangaroo guest was, and I told them, I said, I'm my bold prediction was that North Melbourne is this year's Hawthorn. They may not, I don't think they're going to push their way up into like, the top 4 or 5, but I said, I think they're going to find the spot in the 8 this year. Now that was before Wardlaw did the hamstring. I they brought in some veteran leadership. I think Luke Parker is going to be a big help, in,
Mm-hmm.
in training. Um, I think that, the forward they brought in from, West Coast. Is it Jack Darling that came? I think
Yep,
it was.
darling. Yep.
Yeah. I think he's gonna take a little bit of pressure off of Nick Larkey. Because as
Mm-hmm.
you talked about, how the defense would collapse back onto Buddy Franklin and would collapse onto Hawkins before Cameron was there, that sort of thing. They didn't really have a lot of other scoring options in the forward line. So Larkey would get it, get the ball, get the ball kicked in his direction, and there'd be 4 or 5 opponents around him because they knew he was really their only target in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yep.
think Jack Darling's going to help a lot. I think he might have a bit of a resurgence year. I just and yeah, I just think that they could possibly sneak their way in this year.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. North Melbourne's one of those. I'm if things go well, and like I said, unfortunately, like I said, Wardlow's injury kind of,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the depth they brought in and the experience they brought in, I think will only help their youngsters. So I'm
yep.
100% with you on that one. So all right, let's jump right into it. Everybody knows I'm a huge supporter of the women's game, and I've chatted with you a little bit, so I'm going to change this question just the tiniest bit because I know unfortunately you don't have as much time to keep track of the women's game. But I will ask this: do you keep track of the women's game? I know it isn't as easy because you're a little bit more busy come the fall, as you said with your announcing. So do you keep track of the AFLW?
I I typically do. I mean, in 2023, I think I watched probably 80% of the games in 2023, and I didn't see a single one of the games this past year. I didn't see a single AFLW game this past year. I was so busy, and to be honest, I was so busy with that, and I also got so caught up watching cricket
Hmm.
that kind of slid into, because I've subscribed to that
Willow.
Willow TV as well, which which I love. I mean, I've discovered what tape ball is.
Hmm.
They have Indian professional tennis on there as well. I watched about 20 minutes of that, and I saw something on there. It was a couple of guys sitting around what looked like a checkerboard with dust on it, where they were shooting checkers at one another. I don't know what the heck it was, but it was the championships in San Francisco. I have no idea what I watched it for about 10 minutes, and I thought this looks pretty silly, so I turned that off. But I don't know what it was, but they looked like they were really good at it, whatever they were doing. I have no idea. But yeah, I typically enjoy watching the women's game because I do want to see it be successful. I've said, that within probably a decade, you're gonna see, the kind of the parity that that you kind of got in the men's comp, because I think right now you could certainly make an argument that maybe they grew the women's league just a hair too quickly because they don't have
Hmm.
enough talented players to, and that's coming out where they maybe don't have enough players with the talent requisite to be competitive
Hmm.
at the highest level.
Hmm.
But I think that you got a lot of pioneers, if you will, in the game right now that are basically building that foundation for the 12, 13, 14 year olds that are playing right now, who in 5 to 10 years are going to be wearing those AFLW jumpers. So, I mean, so
Hmm.
it is, I do enjoy watching it. I just got so caught up with cricket this year that I and everything else that's going on, I did not get the opportunity to watch. I kind of regret it. The Cats I
Hmm.
actually played finals this year, if I'm not mistaken. I think I got into the finals this year,
Nope. It
or maybe it was last year.
just
Last
fell
year they got
short.
in.
Yep.
Last year they got in.
Last
That's
year they
right.
got all the way to
Yeah,
the prelims.
yeah,
They were the
yeah,
shocker. They were the shocker
yeah,
that Port Adelaide was this year.
yeah,
Is the team that nobody expected to get to the prelims that got to the prelims. But I'll tell you this, Geelong was one of those. They were snake bitten purely because they had probably one of the toughest draws out of
yeah,
everybody. They played pretty much all of the sides in the finals, and they just literally it was the unluck of the draw in this particular year that actually burned them. But still, there's a ton of talent in there. I think the Cats are going to be a team that you definitely keep an eye on because they're that
yeah,
another young and up and coming team, just like Hawthorn and Port Adelaide, both expansion teams that really jumped up the ladder this year. So it'll be fascinating to see how that goes. So, but we will jump from that in as you and I have kind of went back and forth, and like I said, my thoughts are with you, sure, with everything that's gone on, because I know you had again planned on going to Australia again this particular
right, right.
summer, and unfortunately plans kind of changed, and again family comes first. So I will ask this question. I know you're going to get there. I just have this feeling you're going to get there. So I'm going to ask, when you go, is there a food item that you really want to try at the footy when you go?
Um, well, I mean, absolutely got to have a 4 and 20 pie. I mean, you got to have one or two of those. I mean, you know, fries or chips are fries or chips, no matter where you are. Okay.
Mhm.
You know, yeah, I do want to get to, Bunnings and have and find out whether or not I could actually get a
Snag.
snag with mustard. And I don't do ketchup on my hot dogs, but can I get mustard there? Is that a thing in Australia? But yeah, I was going to go in 2023. I'm sorry, 2024, and I ended up having surgery in the spring of 2024. And then I still worked. I had hernia surgery. You get
Mhm.
old, you walk about 12 miles a day at work, and you empty. And again, I'm a school teacher, but I love working at this amusement park. You empty 300-400 trash cans a day, walk about 12 miles, you get a hernia. Um, my wife was diagnosed with uterine cancer back in early November. She had her initial surgery for that right before Thanksgiving. They thought everything was confined to the uterus, but they did find some cancerous cells outside of that. So she started her chemo and radiation. She started chemo. I think she's in week 4 out of 6 right now. I think she's got 12 doses of radiation left. She had her second chemo treatment yesterday, um, and the next one that she has in March is the one that she says that's the one that kicks your butt. This next, like the next three are going to be the ones that are going to kick her butt. But she's been an absolute trooper. She's doing well. But it's just been, as I was mentioning to you off air, and we've talked about this a little bit. There's just been what can go wrong. You can't make up the stuff that's happened in the last
Hmm.
few months. My as I mentioned, my son's an officer in the Navy. He lives in Virginia. He bought a house back in May of this past year. His ship deployed in September. His tour on that ship was up in early December because he's now training. He's going to surface warfare's version of Top Gun right now. So
Hmm.
pretty cool he's doing that. But he was out at sea somewhere in the North Sea, and we got a call from his neighbor who he's been friends with for years, and somebody drove their car through the front of his house. Um, did $20,000 worth of damage to his house. We're in Ohio. That house is in
Hmm.
Virginia. He got home in early December and had to be in San Diego the first week of January. So he still hasn't had the repairs made to the house
Hmm.
yet. And then my daughter's home at Thanksgiving. Her next door neighbor's boyfriend who's training to be a police officer. And if you're in the U.S., you're going to appreciate this, but um, well, at least the attempt at humor with this that her neighbor's boyfriend was training to be a police officer and was cleaning his 9mm pistol and didn't clear the round out of the chamber and blew a hole through her entire apartment. Just shot a round went through her
Oh
entire
boy.
apartment while she was here. So she got home and she what's this hole in the wall? And she looked, there's a massive hole in her bedroom door and another hole in the
Hmm.
wall on the other side and it had gone through into the living room. Her cat was still at home, but her cat was okay. Well, he's no longer training to be a police officer. They dismissed him from the academy, and I thought, God, what an opportunity to keep him in that position because he's already got a built-in name. He's going to be a police officer in North Carolina. If they don't call him Barney for his entire career from the Andy Griffith show, who was allowed to carry one bullet in his pocket because he kept accidentally firing his gun, uh,
Oh my God.
that was a missed opportunity for them. So and now the other thing is we've learned that our younger dog, we have two Wheaten Terriers. One of them is 17 and one of them is 10. And the 10-year-old we believe has we're waiting to get the results back from the ultrasound, but he had an ultrasound last week that they believe he has colon cancer. We thought it was prostate, but I think now that it's colon cancer. And so yeah, it has been a whirlwind of just happiness and joy here. So as I told Donnie, I'm glad I don't drink because this would be a completely different conversation if I did.
Well, listen, there's one thing, sir. Again, is like I said, the podcast is sometimes as I kind of told you, unfortunately, my 2023 and 2024
Yeah,
were just as
yeah,
hectic
you
with
had, yeah,
with a
you had,
few
yeah,
things,
yep,
unfortunately. So sometimes the podcast it's therapeutic. It pulls
yeah.
your
It's
mind away.
it's
It
a
lets you get
catharsis.
away. So again, you
I'm
have my positive vibes. I send a virtual hug to you, sir. I know this has not been easy. So
yeah,
let's let's let's
and I had
let's have
and
some fun.
the one thing I do want to mention also, and I did a I had just I had a guest on a number of years ago, and if you're a longtime footy fan, you might know the name Barry Cheatley.
Hmm.
And Barry Cheatley played for the Roos for many, many years. He then spent about 25 years as their marketing manager. He was the guy that kind of, helped to, you know, bring the pizzazz, if you will, to the games for them for about 25 years. And I had him on the podcast and I spoke to him for like 4.5 hours. And when we got done, he told me, he said, let me know who you want to talk to next because I know them. And right then it was like getting a drink of water out of a fire hose. It was like, where do I start? I joked with him. I said, so when am I going to talk to Gary Ablett Sr.? He said, okay, who else? Uh, but he, I traded emails with him for the last few years. He helped introduce me to a couple different guests. And unfortunately, he passed away about 6 weeks ago. Right after I had just done, I was doing a series of episodes on my most memorable guests, and I had just republished the two episodes that I had done with him. I'd done new introductions on them, and I saw that his that it popped up in my news feed on social media that he had passed away, and I traded many messages with his daughter over the years as well. Simone seems like a wonderful person. She actually is a teacher as well. Um, and she'd confirmed it, and I did like a little tribute to him because he was just a gem of a man, and he was one of those people that I was so looking forward to shaking hands with and meeting in person. He really was, and I told him that. I said I can't wait to shake hands with you, because I was actually, we had made plans because I was going for rounds, what, 19 through 22 this year,
Hmm.
and round 20 Cats were playing at Marvel against the Ruse, and it's like their 125th anniversary game for the Ruse. And we'd already talked, and I was going to go and sit with he and his family at the game. And I told him, I said, well, I am going to be wearing my Cats gear if you're okay with that. I said, yeah, that's fine. Um, but I was going to go sit with them at the game, if I was going to be there. So I was really, really excited about that. And I'm so sad that he's gone because he was just such a nice, nice man. And, yeah, I'm, yeah, my deepest condolences to his family and friends because it's just, and his best friend who was the team president, Dr. Ayuk, his wife I think passed away. He passed away last year, and then his uh, his wife I think passed away the day after Barry passed away. Um, just within just a very short period of time. So yeah, it's been yeah, I like I said, he's somebody I was really looking forward to meeting. And there's several people that, and I probably wouldn't be able to meet all of them because there's people I talk to all over the country. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
gentleman who I talked to named Orville who lives about two. He
Hmm.
used to live off the coast of Brisbane on Russell Island. He now lives about 300 kilometers west of Brisbane in the middle of nowhere. And I talked to him usually for a half an hour, 40 minutes, at least once a week.
Hmm.
We just, hop on the messenger video thing and just shoot the breeze and just chat about things. He's a huge Buffalo Bills fan. He's a
Hmm.
cat supporter, but just, it's just, I talk to more people that live there than I do that live here. And
Hmm.
it's just so many amazing, friendly people that I've met. And you know, if you've not listened to the podcast before, check it out. You're probably going to recognize a name or two of people that I've had on as guests. And if you don't, you might find some neat stories there anyway.
Hmm.
It's a lot of fun, and it's a labor of love. I think that Donnie has, that I have for this. It's just we love sharing this game that we've fallen in love with, and we're trying to give back. I think to the game while trying to encourage other people to check it out as well.
Hmm. 100%. I am totally with you. So I think let's get to the coup d'etat, the last question. I'm interested on this. I always end my episodes nowadays, especially my chats, with favorite game of footy you have ever seen live on the television, tape delayed or recorded for later. What is your favorite game of footy you have ever seen?
Um, let's see. I'm gonna go with this one. Uh,
How
sorry.
come I'm not surprised?
The and I because my team, I had a team that actually won something. Again, the Cavaliers won in 2016. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but they, a Cleveland team won something. But this is one that I had such a vested interest in, just like you had a vested interest with the Swans, and I was so hoping it was going to be a Cat Swans rematch last year. Um, I'm thinking you probably wanted that as well. Let's get back at them again. But it's I that's the easy answer, and I would have to there've been a few. I remember there was a game. Oh, I can't remember who it was against, but there was one that I remember Gary Rowan knocking through a set shot after the horn went from the left, not quite the left pocket, but he kicked it a good 40-45 meters to win the game. That was one that was tremendous as well. But I mean, it would have to be the grand final.
Mhm.
And again, I haven't, the only games I've seen in person is I went to a regional tournament last year. Your club was there. Um, it's kind of hard to, to watch a lot of stuff from ground level. I mean, it's kind of difficult there. I was able to do a couple of interviews with some really interesting people there as well. Some people who are new to the game, and a young man for the Columbus Cats who actually played for a year. It was interesting, in Australia because I was wearing a God, I can't think the Razorbacks. It's a team from up in Darwin that they'd
Hmm.
sent me their, one of their polo shirts. They actually sent a bunch of like kids jumpers that I shared with some of the teachers at my school that had younger kids. I don't know if they ever wore them or not. I hope they did, but he actually had played for that team in Darwin like 5 years ago. And he was like, he saw the shirt and he did a little bit of a double take. And I was like, where the heck did you get that shirt? And I said, and he's a Navy veteran who was a corpsman and such. And it just was, it was a great count, just a really humble kid that plays for the Columbus Cats named Clyde. And just, just a really, really nice young man. It was great to talk to him. But, I, I don't know if they'll have another regional tournament in this area this year. I mean, I don't know if they'll go to Columbus. Maybe they'll go to Indianapolis this year. I don't, maybe I'll
Hmm.
make the trip over there. Columbus is only 2 hours, so I was able to go down and come back the same evening. But it was, that's I guess what I have to do until I actually get the opportunity to make the trip to Australia. And it's and when I go, and like I said, I'm planning on being there for a month. I was going by myself. And my wife, she was very concerned. Well, what if something happens to you? And I said, well, guess what? If I drop dead, I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. And I joked with you about the ashes at Marvel
Hmm.
Stadium. I said, sprinkle them at Cardenia Park if they'll allow you to do it. And then
Hmm.
then I joked about the other Richmond supporter at Marvel if it doesn't work out that way then. But um, yeah, I just I'm and I there's another thing that I have thought, after I retire, I'm not ready to be done working yet. Yeah, because I've got roughly 3 years till I can retire. I can technically retire with my full retirement in 2 more years after this school year's up, but it
Hmm.
probably won't be till three. Uh, because as she said, well, I'll still be working. And I told her, I said, I'm 4 years older than you are. You're going to be using my pension a heck of a lot longer than I am. And then she looked at me, she said, which one of us has cancer, you knucklehead? I said, okay, that's true. So a lot of very deadpan humor here that's going on, a lot of black comedy going on in our house right now. But I thought, it would be neat after I retired to maybe go teach there for a year as
Hmm.
well. Just to go, I got a buddy, Michael Gallus, that went and, taught, at one of the cattle stations up in the northern part of WA. And I remember, talking to him there, and he said, "Yeah, I had to go to the bank today. It was a 6 hour round trip." Because there's nothing around them. It's literally it's cattle, it's grass, and there's desert outside of that, and that's what's there. He said fantastic Wi-Fi, but other than that, there's nothing else there. Um, but it's I just thought that would be an interesting thing to do. Because I'm not ready to be done with my job. Again, I still love my teaching job about 98 and a half days out of 100. It used to be 99. Now it's down about 98 and a half.
Hmm.
I still love going to work almost every single day. There's some days, that drive me a little crazy, but I still really like doing what I do. So I'm not ready to be done with it yet. So, and maybe I'll do that. I did say I would maybe like to just, do that the whole circle, do the M1 all the way around the continent,
Hmm.
which is like 10,000 kilometers, if not more. I
Something
think
to
it's
that
actually more.
effect. I think
Yeah,
somebody
it's
actually did it recently. So
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I think it would
So
be so much fun to just make that trip all the way around and just do all the sightseeing, and then maybe finish that up, and then maybe take the train, like from Adelaide to Darwin, and go through the middle part of the country then as well. Yeah.
no, that'd be a lot of fun. It's the one thing I've joked is like, guys, like if I wanted to, I think I've got enough friends in enough of the places
Uh-huh.
I could probably couch surf from Brisbane south to Gold Coast down through New South Wales into
Yeah.
Victoria. and then probably find myself all the way out to Perth.
Hmm.
I've got enough people that I know that it's definitely one of those that
I think that's probably the case. Yeah.
yep, it's
And
on my
I
bucket
think
list.
I think you certainly could at Perth with all the stuff you do with with the waffle and down in Adelaide with the sandful. I think you probably could
Oh
definitely do
yes,
that.
I have several. I know the Norwood Footy Club. I've got
Hmm.
three or four people around the Norwood Footy Club that I think I could probably get through their ground and everything down there. I think it'll be a lot of fun to be able to. I wish I could find a way to maybe get down there sometime
Hmm.
during the Waffle W and the Sample W to be able to catch some games there, just to
Hmm.
see some of the state league footy at the
Right,
time.
right.
I think it would be fantastic.
And
But
that's one of the things I'm excited about when I go is that I want to go and see local footy because one of the things I do I try to do every episode is like a local club of the
mhm,
week where I kind of highlight them and tell a little bit about what they've got going on and such because yeah, it's that's unlike anything we have in sports here in the US. We've got high school teams. We don't have really community teams. We don't have
mhm,
we don't have that hub around which that community rotates. It's not it's the focal point of that community
mhm.
and I think it would do a lot to bring some of those communities together. I mean, we could certainly learn an awful lot from them as far as that goes.
I agree,
I think.
especially with sport in
Yeah.
the football netball clubs for a lot of them are. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not only an employer, but they bring a lot of community sense together.
Yeah.
So 100% with you on
Yep.
that. So, Craig, this has been fantastic. I again, you and I sit down and we chat, and it's just so much. It's just so much fun because, like I said, we're so kindred spirits. It's fantastic. Again, like I said, I know you're going through a lot. Again, virtual hugs to you, sir. And again,
Thank you, sir.
I
Thank
will
you.
keep
Right back
track
at
of
you.
it. I like I said, I think we've both went through our fair share of things over the last probably year and a
Yep.
half. So
Yep.
again, thank you
And
so much for hopping on the podcast.
you
And then
bet. Yeah.
before you go, again,
Yeah.
for those that have not listened a little bit more about the Yank on the Footy, because again, as I said, it is a constant listen for me. So many great
Yeah.
conversations,
Yeah.
and your season recaps are so much fun because again, I like hearing your style of what you think of when it comes to this great game of football.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you go to my website, yankonthefooty.com, you can find, um, all the podcast episodes that are there. I'm on, Instagram and X and Facebook, but you can subscribe there as well. I've got probably 70% of my episodes up on YouTube, and I'm now starting to put them up on Rumble as well.
Mhm.
Um, but that's actually a little easier than I thought it would be. Rumble, it's a pretty easy set and forget as far as getting them uploaded there as well. But not a lot of Australian football interest on Rumble as of right now, but at least they're
Mhm.
going up there, so they will be there when it does take off. I'm going to be on the ground floor, but it's yeah, as I'd said, I love telling people stories. Again, because I'm never, I'm, ne- although you and I and the brothers out in California, and we know more about Australian football than your typical American.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, but I will never be so bold as to, to tell somebody who's an Australian who's been following the game for 40 years that I know more about their game than they do.
Mhm.
I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know, if you know what I mean.
Mhm. Nope, completely
Okay.
agree.
So I try to do the due deference there, just people that have so many interesting stories to tell, and my interviews, they don't always stick with footy.
Mhm.
And they don't always fit into that nice 60-minute block of time. Sometimes they might be 55 minutes, sometimes they might be an hour and 55 minutes. It's just
Mhm.
where the conversation goes. And I don't, I mean, I'll edit out. I try to edit out sneezes and I coughs and I try to nip those as they're happening, but I don't, I don't edit out content necessarily because
Mhm.
people tell wonderful stories, that I just love to share those. And some of them are tragic, some of them are sad, some of them are inspiring. Some of one of them, gentleman Steve Campbell I had on a couple of years ago. We spent probably 45 minutes talking about him doing cross country motorcycle trips all across Asia. Has not a darn thing to do with footy, but he's an interesting person.
Mhm.
And and yeah, we talked about, he's a big Bulldogs fan. We talked about the Bulldogs and that sort of thing, but then we also go into these other things, and my buddy that lives up in Queensland, that I learned so much, learn about stuff that he does where he, every year on Anzac Day, there's a Australian sniper from Gallipoli by the name of Billy Singh,
Mhm.
who, had, I think, close to like 150 or 250 kills at the Battle of Gallipoli. And he ended up passing away destitute and that sort of thing. But they've honored him. He's got, a huge obelisk grave marker at the military cemetery up near Brisbane where he's buried. And this buddy of mine, Orville, who is in his early 70s, for like the last 20 years, on Anzac Day, he goes to the cemetery, he polishes the obelisk, he replaces the Australian flag, and he sleeps at the graveside on Anzac Day on the ground. This is a 70-year-old guy that's doing this. He was a military veteran himself. I mean, it's just stuff that, stories that need to be told that maybe aren't going to get told elsewhere. And yeah, they may not have a lot, that part may not have a lot to do with footy, but hell, it's my show and I think it's pretty damn interesting. And you're gonna,
Mhm.
come for the footy, stay for the interesting people that are there as well.
I
And they're
agree.
and I'm not the interesting person, okay? I'm a knucklehead. I'm not the interesting one. I try to get the interesting to come out of other people is what I try to do. Okay.
I love it. No, I absolutely love it. I know some of the people that you've had on are absolute, again, some great storytellers, just some great stories. I agree with you. It really is that I know it's based out of footy, but sometimes
Yeah.
just the stories that you hear are
Yeah.
absolutely
Because
magnificent. So
because
that's
I'm actually working on a second podcast right now.
mhm,
I've not recorded anything. I've started to map out what I want to do with it. I own the domain name for it now. I haven't started recording episodes for it because, again, I look at all the spare time I have. But it's kind of modeled. There's a guy who I had on who does an Australian show called the Regional 250, where he interviews people in like 200 like small towns and shires all around Australia. And like the first half of the episode is talking about the community that they live in, and then the second half is about them in person. And it's very formulaic. He asks basically the same questions, that kind of stuff. But it's interesting, for somebody like me who's interested in like local footy, to hear about these local communities, because I've actually gone and used some of those communities from that show
mhm,
and found their footy clubs and have incorporated those into my episodes. And it's similar to that, but it's a different group of clientele.
mhm,
And I'll tell you off air about another one that I've thought about, because I still may do this one as well, because
mhm.
I think it's an interesting idea that, and again, it's one my wife thought, that's a dumb idea, but but I get, yeah, and I guess, she would say, as long as you're not bothering me, it's okay. So let me watch my, Dancing with the Stars and stuff, but
There is
I'll do this
nothing.
instead. Yeah.
There
And
is.
for those of you who are listening, if you got any ideas, and I don't know, Donnie, does your wife watch any of the footy with you?
She listens. It's not as much sometimes. I know sometimes I think her insomnia makes it a little bit easier for her to watch. She keeps an eye on it. I know that
Okay.
whenever the floggers, the giant pom poms show up, she
Yeah.
wants to see those.
Okay.
So I'll normally put that up. But I mean, is she sitting down and watching every single minute of every game? Absolutely not. And
Mhm.
again, I will never force her to do it. If she
Right,
wants
right,
to watch it, it's a lot like
right.
you. If she wants to watch it, I am more than willing to
Yeah.
show her and teach things. But if they don't, I'm not gonna force it on it, because that's one of the worst ways to be a
Right.
fan, is to try to
Exactly.
force
Exactly.
something onto
Yeah.
somebody. So
Yeah.
no.
And I've not, she's not watched a second of footy with me. And I even, you know, so what I was going to ask is, if you got some suggestions on how to encourage her to check out the game that I haven't thought of, I'd love to hear those. Because about 4 or 5 years ago, there were several stories that I saw online that were showing, clubs training at the beach, and there was
Hmm.
an article with the Hawks training at the beach and they're budgie smugglers, and I'm thinking, I'm very comfortable in my manhood, but damn, Jake Ramir is a handsome guy there and his budgie smuggler on the beach. So I sent her these articles thinking
Maybe that'd get her
that
attention.
might move the needle. Didn't at all. Didn't care. Didn't want to watch.
Not a
Um,
single centimeter.
and I've had that same problem with Game of Thrones. I can't watch a show with dragons in it 'cause it's not realistic. And then she goes and watches Outlander, which has got the time
Mhm.
traveling nurse in it, so it's completely realistic.
Oh
What do you mean
boy,
you brought penicillin back to the Civil War?
that is awesome. So,
Now, I
Greg,
I do want to watch Outlander sometime with her though. So
all
I
right.
do want to watch it with her. But yeah, I know we've been here for a while, so yeah.
No, there's no again, I love some of these. Sometimes these are my favorite ones because they're just two people talking and enjoying having a conversation. These, like I
Yeah.
said, these are my favorites. I know some people say anything gets over an hour, people start to think. I said sometimes my favorite ones are the ones that just go because
Yeah.
it's just so natural and so much fun. Again, you and I go back and forth. We chat all the time. I know that one of the things that we love is our fantasy footy league, and we're prepping everything for that. And again, I want to record our draft because last year that was so much fun because you have 10 guys all together that most
Yeah.
of us absolutely adore the sport. We get into the sport, so it's always fun to hear us go back and forth. So it's always
I'm
great fun to chat with you.
I'm just hoping that the app works again this year. Because
they
two years
they
ago, two
revamped
years
it
ago it was
so
so much
much.
fun when it didn't work for me.
I felt so horrible for you that entire draft. It got to the point where we had guys in the draft that were literally like, Craig, who do you want? I'll draft and we'll trade later. It
But
got to that
it
point.
it
We
kind of
felt
became
so bad for Craig
yeah,
that year.
it kind of became yeah, I look back at it now and I kind of laugh at it. But I wasn't laughing that day, but it was just like
No,
son
no.
of a
But
gun. It's like,
the good thing was is that we enjoyed the company in the
oh
chat
yeah.
was also it
And the
was just
team
so much fun.
and the team did okay
Yeah.
that year, but
Wasn't
I think
that
I did.
bad. Wasn't that bad.
I think I
We
did
helped
better
you out
last
with a
year.
few trades. We helped you out with a few
Yeah.
trades. So
Yeah.
all right,
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this podcast. Again, we could be here for another 45 minutes if Craig and I get going, and I don't want to keep him up any more than
Yeah, I
he
got to get
has
up at
to.
4:45.
I know, and I've got work myself, so I think we're going to wrap it up here again, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoy what you're listening to, please like and subscribe again. Keep track of it. More more supporter series coming up. I have so many scheduled. I cannot wait. I'm still looking for a couple. I think North Melbourne and St. Kilda are still the only two that I am still in search of. But I've got some
Hey,
really great guests
I I
lined
can
up.
help you with say I can help you. Well, you know who you ought to, I don't know if he's back in the States yet, but you got to get that guy that
The
was
guy
from
from
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma who I
If
just
you
saw
can
on
get
that one,
him or
I knew how to
Robert
get a hold of him.
Williamson,
Yeah,
Robert Williamson. Yeah, I bet you could find him on social media.
probably. I will definitely search for that. So
Yeah.
let's get out of here. That's going to do it for another
Okay.
episode of Donnie's Disposals. We'll be back
Thanks
with
so much,
more
Donnie.
footy coverage very, very soon.